sitting in my studio, which is a pretty grand affair, or for me anyway. It's a 1840s Methodist church that about 10 years ago my wife and I were able to buy along with the parsonage in a little town in the Hudson Valley, a little town called Esopus, and the church has been converted into my studio. I'm sure you'll see examples of that in this video, but I'm here to talk about how the work I'm doing developed and what I'm doing at the moment and sort of how I got there. The beginnings of it really start back in the way I grew up, or where I grew up, which was in outside of a small town in Virginia. And the town still had vestiges of the 30s, even the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and I am of an age where I caught the tail end of the 60s as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old. And the civil rights movement was, and racism was a very pertinent influence or factor in how I grew up. The town was very divided. And I think as I got older and later in the work that I was doing, when it was maybe less exploratory and more developed, and my true voice came around, it really started to incorporate a lot of the impressions that I had as a young person growing up. And one of the main features there were sort of iconic visions of shacks and houses, and a lot of houses that on dirt roads, and growing up in a time where you could take off and pretty much just be home for dinner. A lot of visions like walking down dirt roads and seeing abandoned houses at sunset and things like that. And as a painter, which is what I've primarily been since my 20s, abstract landscape painter, and then developed, that sort of grew into, over time, landscape painting with iconic images, sometimes single images that would take up most of the canvas. Usually that would have been a house or a structure, and somewhat abstracted, and that became more and more standardized in the paintings that I was making and selling. And at some point I started doing two-dimensional sort of bas-relief pieces that had house structures built into a wood background that had landscape painting on it. And then there was a point where it even came further out of the painting, and I started building maquettes, sort of to refer to draw from. And they themselves became sort of a point of interest. They were very visceral to me, and the memory of these types of houses, and even the people that lived in these houses, and the narrative around these people sort of took over and became sort of the pivot for me for the work I was doing. And so the houses grew in scale. Some people liked them, some of them sold, but I wasn't really sure where to go with that. And as that became more and more prominent, building pieces out of found materials, at some point it became clear, dawned on me, they belonged back in the landscape. So I had this concept of to do a series of sculptures and place them in landscape, and the title for that is Imagined Histories. And that's as much a suggestion as really a definition. It's really, as people see these photographs, I hope that they see something that they respond to from their memory or from their background. Or, I've had a variety of reactions, even some pieces that look like they might have been Asian type buildings. People say, Vietnam vets have said that reminds them of Vietnam. And most people find some reference in their background or some way to relate to the photographs that are generated from placing the sculptures in the landscape. I'll probably continue this process. I'm actually working with sculptures that are a little more drawing from altars that I'm placing outside trying to have installed in nature in the spring, and then use plant growth throughout the season to watch it change, and even daily visiting a piece and intertwining the vines that are growing on the piece throughout the piece through the growing season, its blooming season, and then as it dies off.